The objective of today's presentation is to provide you with tips on ways to make performing routine tasks day to day easier. Some of these tips you may already know, but I'm certain you'll pick up something new today. Let's get started. All right, so let's start with the home page. The Dynamics GP home page helps end users access the areas of the software that are most important to them. When the system first starts up, users are presented with their individual home page, and they are able to edit and modify to meet their needs. So if they click on Customize this page, they can choose the areas of the software they'd like to look at, or what are the main things they'd like to see on their home page. In this case, we've chosen To-Do List, Quick Links, and My Reports. Those are the most popular ones that people use. For the to-do list, you'll notice that there's reminders and tasks. So if we click on the to-do list here, for the reminders, there's Microsoft Dynamics GP reminders. There are some predefined out-of-the-box reminders that the user can add to their menu, or they can have custom reminders that are assigned to them. These are usually smart lists, and they can determine when those particular smart lists will show on their screen. So you could say here for my receivable transactions, show me the transaction when the total of that current transaction amount is greater than 0. And so it would be included in the list. Say OK to that. In here you can also define your task list. So the tasks can be used as little to-dos, so they can be reminders. You can assign these reminders to yourself or to others, and they can fall off the list once they're marked as complete. So if you wanted to add a new task, you could just simply add a new task. We've put in buy coffee for the meeting, add donuts for the meeting, the day that that particular task is due. So who it's assigned to, it can be assigned to a different user, what's the status of that one, and it can be linked. It can be something that's a reminder for you to do something in a program, and it can be linked actually to a GP window or an external program also. If we save that, then it comes up on my list until such time as I say it's complete and it's gone. We're just going to say OK to this, and we can look at quick links. So quick links here are usually standard GP programs that the user uses every single day. So you can put those on a quick links program, and then they don't have to actually fool around with going into the different menus and finding what they're looking for most often during a day. They can use those for the odds and sods that they're using. So if you wanted to, in this case, add a GP window, so you can use a window, a navigation list, a web page if you wanted to, or an external program such as maybe an Excel spreadsheet if you wanted to add that to quick links. You can click on add. We're going to do a GP window for now. It's just going to be an inquiry. In this case, we'll say it's a sales inquiry, and it's a customer summary, and say OK. You can move that around on the list. You can just click on it, move it up, move it down. Well, in this case, only up because it already is at the bottom. And then you can say OK to that, and it's added to your menu. We'll go to My Reports separately. At the bottom here, you can see the different column layouts. So this is a 2-column layout. And if we were to stack or make this particular window maximized, the other windows would stack to the right of the screen. We'll say OK to that. And now you can see that my actual customer summary has been added to my quick links. So with these quick links, you can just quickly click on them, and it just opens up the smart list in this case, shows you which customers are over their limit, and you can action as is appropriate. Same idea here. If you wanted to do a receivable summary inquiry, AP sales, or sorry, AR sales transaction entry, you just click on it and it opens the window for you, so you don't have to go through so many windows to get to it. For My Reports, though, it's a little bit different. If you go to Sales in this case, and go to Reports, and go to, say, Analysis would be something that we want to do. And we want to look at unapplied documents. So we can modify the can modify the criteria on that particular report. You can just determine if this is by document type. Insert your different ranges if you wanted to do document date. So I wanted to do 0101 to 027 to 31. So we'll just do 31, and then there's a quick tip there that you can just put in the date of the month that you already started and it'll know what you want. Do insert and then click on my report. So this now is going to be saved for you as your report. You want to actually put a name in there, you can change the name, say OK, save, close, close, go back to your home page, and your unapplied documents is now on your reports. So again, it can just run it and it just opens the report for you. All right, so say that you're running a big long report and you'd like to find some specific information within that report. If I run my AR historical trial balance and I look in here and I'm trying to find, so do Control F for find, and I want to try and find telephone or tele something. Type the first few letters, say OK, and oh look, it's found telephone, but telephone number in my customer name. So we can do find next, which is Control G, find for Control F, and previous next page. So if we do Control G to go to the next one, breakthrough telemarketing. Is that the right one? You could also do this by customer number in this case, or a specific dollar value, but Control F can help you get through a report a little bit quicker than just trying to scroll around and find what you're looking for, or having to print it and look through paper. And then of course our multi-currency summary. So the next thing are some user preferences. So some of the things people like to do is set their default printer. So my default report destination, is it going to the printer or the screen? Do I want my entry key to be tab or return? One of the things we like to do in here is your default sales document. And then we also want to look at the display and try and make your required fields not be bold and black. Maybe we can change them to be a font color of, say, red. And they can still be bold, but maybe they're bold and italic, and just so that they stand out a little bit more. Not everybody likes the italic, but that's fine. But that's what the screen would look like. You can just leave it bold, say apply. And then that'll apply that to all of your required fields in all of your documents. You also have the ability to add external shortcuts to this to your navigation pane. You can right click, go add an external shortcut. It asks you what you want to call it. And where do I find it? So you can put in a command line or you can simply browse. In this case, I want to go to my desktop and I want to grab a spreadsheet. You can also add a keyboard shortcut to that favorite. So if you'd like this to be, say, F6, so if the F5 key, notice, is missing, so it must be a shortcut on a different item. So if I wanted to use F6 for this particular one, I can use F6, add that shortcut, and say done. And then when I click on there, or use F6, my shortcut brings up that spreadsheet right away. You also have the ability to customize the ribbon bar at the top. So the standard one is the Dynamics GP menu, transactions, inquiry reports. But instead of having to go GP and go Smart List, you can actually add your Smart List as a shortcut on your ribbon bar. If we right click here, we go to Customize, and we go to Add. So we want to choose the toolbar to modify. Do we want to maintain different parts of it? We'll keep this the main ribbon bar. and want to add a new program to that. So I can choose from here. In my case, I chose the Smart List. And from that Smart List, we can also, I'm going to cancel out of there, just going to go to Smart List, and we can modify that section. So instead of it just printing a little image, which sometimes it comes up like that one there and you don't know what that actually is, you can say print just the text, so just the word Smart List comes up. You can do the image in text, which is my choice here. So you can change the button image, you can do different things to that just to make those reports come up, or different parts of the program come up in a shortcut at the top of the screen. You can use your Smart List for repetitive tasks also, and again, as I said, add them to your home page so that you can quickly access those Smart Lists. So if I was to choose, in this case I'm doing sales, and let me just maximize this screen so you can actually see it. And my customers, and maybe I just wanted a customer list, and I always wanted to be able to use that customer list. You can take this customer list, and most of you will know Smart List, but if you wanted some more hints and tips on using Smart List, feel free to watch our Smart List webinar on that. You can do your search criteria in there, but you can also add to your favorites. So you can call this customer list, and this customer list is going to be visible to just me. I'm going to add it. I can add it as a favorite. I can add it as a favorite with a reminder. Since it's just a customer list, I'll add it as a favorite. And so now you'll see, I could actually put my initials on there, but now you'll see a list there just called customer list that's in the Smart List. So the customer list is now added to my reports. So I don't have to go back to Smart List and get it. It's just on my reports. And it brings up the Smart List, and then I can do whatever I need to do with it. Many people don't realize that they can actually switch between companies, change their date, even change their user code with a simple click of a button. If you can see where my cursor is at the bottom of the screen here, if I click on the Fabricam Limited company, and I have more than one company, which I don't, I could easily switch companies this way. But even bringing up this screen, I can change my user code using the change user code. I can change my date, so I can have my transaction date be a different date. So this is useful sometimes at month end. So today's the first of the month, but I'm still working on things from the last day of last month. So I can change my date so that I don't have to keep remembering to go back and forth between dates to get my transactions in for last month. And I can say okay to that. As we're working through the date there, something interesting to know is this is also in transaction fields, but you notice that this is April 12th, 2027. I mentioned earlier that if I press the 23rd, it would remember what month and year I'm in, so it would just change the date to the 23rd. While you're in here also, you can also use the plus key to change your dates, or the minus key to go backwards to change the date also, as well as the little arrow keys here that just take you back a day or forward a day. So kind of nice to know as far as a shortcut goes. Okay, so one last one on the home page, I think. And we can go into our quick links here and click on edit to change our details. And perhaps we want to add a new GP window. So I'm going to add an inquiry for purchasing, and let's say transaction by document, and say okay. Go down here, transaction by document, modify, we'll call it AP, transaction by document inquiry. And we'll say okay, and we'll say okay. When we look at this screen though, we don't necessarily see it right away. So if you click the little refresh button at the top, it'll refresh this page. And now our AP transaction by document inquiry is at the bottom of the screen. So if I use checkbook balance inquiry, here's another one. We use the checkbook balance inquiry quite a bit. And you'll know after years and years of putting data in the system and never purging that we end up with lots of data. Now my data is not a good example of that as it's testing data, so there's not as many transactions. But if you use the date parameters in here to just parse it down to something a little bit more realistic so that you're not seeing. So for instance, you want to see the balance as of a specific date. You could say I want to see 0401 to 0430, and then read display, except that 2020 is not a valid year. I apologize for that. 27 and 27, and read display. And then it'll just display, and the balance as of April 30th, 2027 was that particular value. It just speeds up the whole process if you just use the date parameters in there. Likewise, if we're transaction processing, we can, in the general ledger, we can actually use a spreadsheet to go ahead and import our general ledger entries. So in this case, I'm going to use my batch ID of demo, and we can call it the 20th of 2027. We can call this a payroll entry to April 2027 if we want to. And then I have a little spreadsheet on my desktop that I'm just going to open. So if I minimize this, minimize this window, go here. I should have had it open, but that's okay. We can just copy the entries here. So we want to make sure we have it in this format: description, account, debit, credit. Just copy the entries for the actual data entry, copy, go back in here and go into the journal reference here and just Control V to paste. Paste here with the Excel button. And now we've imported the Excel. So again, that was open your Excel spreadsheet, make sure it's in the right format, copy the actual data part of the spreadsheet, don't need the headings, make sure you click into the description field at the bottom and click on paste to Excel, paste the Excel spreadsheet into the journal entry. Make sure it's balanced and then you can post it. For now, we'll just save it. Okay, let's show you a couple of quick tips for the general ledger. So if you've got entries that are large or you're doing regular entries by spreadsheet, as a lot of people are, you're not the only ones. It might be easier if you could just take that spreadsheet and put it into a general journal entry. So if we go into general and we create our journal entry and we use the batch ID that we've been using of demo, and we can use our transaction, change the transaction date appropriately. In this case, my entry is for payroll, and I want to put the spreadsheet entry here. So I'm in my general ledger code field. I call up my little spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet needs to be in this format. It needs to be description, account, debit, credit. Then just copy the entries, the data only part of the entries. You don't need the headers. So just right click and copy, regular Excel, or Control C to copy. Go back to your GP, make sure you're in that field. And if you click on paste, it will paste the entries in there. If for some reason the entry is out of balance, it will give you a warning. If a GL code doesn't exist, it'll give you a warning so you can go back update your spreadsheet appropriately and then put that into GP. So if you're happy with that entry, you can save it, you can, and then post your batch so that everything gets to the general ledger. So I'll go back and I'll just do that really quickly just so that I can do the next part of the demo, which is reversing those entries. So we'll take that batch and we'll post it, and sure, it can come to screen. And there it is. And we'll close it. So now we've found that we made a mistake, or we duplicated an entry or something like that. So we want to go back and correct that entry. So we go back to our general journal. We see the option to correct an entry. We just call that up. We can do one of two things. We can just back out an entry that exists and just take it away altogether. We can back out that entry and create a correcting entry. So we need to take away the old one and update the new one. So if I choose to create a correcting entry and I call up that journal that I just created, or you can browse on the journal, and here's another quick tip too. Of course, I already put in a journal, but if you're on the top record and you select end, you can go to the end of the file and pick the last entry in the records, or you can choose whatever you'd like. So even if we choose this one, we can say OK to that. It brings it created a backout entry first. So this is the next journal entry, created the backout entry first. So if I save that one, sorry, make sure you put in your batch, always important, say OK. And then the next one is the correcting entry. So then you could update this entry appropriately and repost with the corrected values. So I'll just save that for now. And that's. So we're working in our sales transaction entry, and we'd like to set up our invoices, packing slips, and other sales order processing documents to print automatically, well, or almost automatically. So if I'm in my invoice and I just choose the next invoice on file, bring it up, I can go up in options and do some quick print setup. So I can say here, in this case, it's an order or a fulfillment order or an invoice. We want how many copies do we want to print, so you can choose the number of copies, and what other options do we need. So this could be a quick print option for that particular document. You can do that for your packing slips, you can do that for your picking list. So if I save this, when I'm in my invoice, I can either just go options and quick print, or I can do Control Q and print that document right away. All right, so to wrap things up, let's do a few quick keyboard shortcuts. So I'm in sales transaction entry, doing an invoice. When I click on the button here just to activate my screen, I pick my new document number, pick my customer ID, I want to pick Barry Medical. So I've already sold to Barry today, so he's in my list, but otherwise I could do Control L to use the lookup. And we can then use the up-down arrows to work through that screen. So we'll use Barry Medical, and we'll type, and we can do the same thing, Control L to look up the ship to address and add that in. Change our date if we'd like to, put in our batch, put in the warehouse, put in the customer, PO, currency ID. What are we selling them? We can either just do a Control L and look through the whole list, or we have an idea that we want to do some kind of RAM. Let's start at RAM. Let's do, we'll actually do this, 128, and find. So we got 128 SD-RAM. We'll use that one, and I just press enter. That's the default for selection. How many do we want to sell? We'll sell 2. We'll override the shortage. Just press enter. At that price is fine. We'll put in comments and everything else we want to do for this order. And then if we're done, we can press Alt save. Actually, we can press save the order, which is the default action right now. I press the Action key, save, and close that window and move on. So a couple of their keyboard shortcuts, just to make note of them if you wanted to use them. You can use Alt F to find. You can use the space bar. So if there's a field that actually has a checkbox, you can use the space bar for that. And what are the most popular ones? Control F4 to close the active window. Alt Tab to move through windows. Those are the kinds of things that you want to look for. During today's webinar, we reviewed tips in Dynamics GP that will help to make routine day-to-day tasks easier. The following are highlights of the main things we covered.